Coach Teresa Ford here, and this is the Guiding You Home podcast. This is a thought-provoking and often humorous approach to moving you closer to the only one who can genuinely help you live a life of abundance and prosperity. Sound good? Yeah, it's you that needs to go within so you can sit in the driver's seat of your life, co-creating with God. So make room for more light and knowledge. As you continue to listen, you will discover elements of how to lead with your inner light, how to act on your specific promptings, and how to follow your spiritual intuition so you can fulfill the measure of your creation. Thanks for being here, and let's dive in. Okay, hello. Welcome back. I'm so excited to talk about our subject today because I want to talk about what matters most to you. And not everybody likes change. And not everybody wants to think about the thoughts they think about because it doesn't go anywhere. But what I do know is that you care about changing negative patterns that drag your life down. I know that you would like to be the person that can end old patterns that cause you to be afraid, causes you to have anxiety, causes depression, causes more sadness, causes more anger, the things like building relationships, and maybe that's been a sticking point for you. Maybe the financial income thing has been a sticking point for you. Maybe just finding self-acceptance and self-validation has been a sticking point for you. Maybe it's a sticking point to let go of what other people think of you. Maybe it's a sticking point that you're always the people pleaser and then you're burned out. Whatever the sticking point is, that's a pattern, and that's the thing you care about changing the most. Okay? But we've got to dive into the mechanics of this. Where did those patterns come from? Because if you don't understand where they came from, it's going to be really hard to change them. And then you continue in that roundabout of, haven't I been through this before? Like, I exited the roundabout thinking I was going to do something different, and all I did was enter the roundabout, the same roundabout again, going in circles, and it gets old. It gets really old after a while. So I want to help you end patterns today. Negative patterns. We're going to keep the good ones. No need to even talk about those, okay? Because those are a truth that's working for you. And what patterns are, they're habits of thoughts that turn into beliefs, and those beliefs drive our behavior. Those habits of thoughts, the thoughts we have that do not serve us, that cause us these negative pattern repetitions, they are what we think is the truth when they're not. They hold a lack of truth, and to my what is that? A big platform that I like to stand on, my pedestal, is that it lacks love. It lacks the good stuff in those thoughts that don't serve you. And because they're turning into patterns and habits, and now we have behaviors that match our thoughts. So if we do change our thoughts, guess what? You're going to change the thing that matters to you, and that's ending those negative behavioral patterns. Okay? So let's go slow. Let's take this a little at a time, and let's turn it into a story, because I want you to see how your life has come to be. I think that's pretty important. Okay, so before the age of 7, your parents, doing the very best they could, good or bad, they were trying to teach you some sort of value system. And that was coming from their habits of thought. And you picked up on them because that was the only thing in front of you. Like, you're like, well, I would trust you to tell me the truth of what I need to know to survive in this world. So since I don't have any other options as a baby, I'm going to trust you to feed me, change me, help me, dress me, right? And so that became our very first habit. Trust the people that are caring for us. And in doing so, they trained us to believe a certain way, to think a certain way. And the difference is that you are not them and they are not you. My mother was a helper and I'm a helper. So there was a lot of similarities there as far as energy and the desire to pitch in and help, which on a negative plane turned into people pleasing, worried about what other people thought of us. Like, though we have very similar energies that way, my dad was a challenger. He was not a helper. He was the guy with the big vision. He was the guy that was going to be right no matter what. And it was difficult, no pun intended. It was a challenge to work with a challenger in the house. And so what he was doing was always challenging people and forcing them to look at what their truth was. Because if their truth didn't agree with his truth, and clearly he was going to be right, then he's going to challenge their truth and see if he can get them to believe what he believed. So this was going on in front of me as I was a child, and I was going to develop stories based on my personal sensitivities. And I was looking at what they were trying to teach me and processing through my underdeveloped brain. Now, before the age of 7, our brain's just always in development mode. It's always trying to pick up what's right, what's wrong, what are the expectations that are being placed on me, who is asking me to do what, and do I have the skill set to perform, right? So this was happening before the age of 7. And what that does, if it was negative training, if you had a father who was angry and a mother who was anxious, that what they were sharing with you, first of all, had nothing to do with you. But second of all, caused you to think thoughts that only you would think. If you're a loyalist, if you're a perfectionist, if you're a peacekeeper, if you're an enthusiast, if you're a helper, if you're an achiever, if you're any of those personalities, whatever personality you are, it's perfect, but you are only going to see things from your perspective. And so even though these parents were trying to do the best they could, and they were teaching you what they wanted to teach you, they were still having reactions and behavioral differences that it matched their thoughts, but it wasn't necessarily serving you, because now you're picking up how to think, and the thoughts you think become habits or beliefs, and those beliefs turn into behavior. Okay, let's back up just a hair. The thoughts you think about change the way your nervous system responds. And when your nervous system is responding in a negative way, it's causing your nervous system is causing you to act or behave in protective ways. And so it could be in fight or flight, which is, break out your sword and swing it around to see if there's someone you need to attack so that they don't attack you first, or you're going to run away. And those are trauma responses to any degree. Like, it could be a very slight degree. I don't want anything to do with that person anymore. Or I got to run, danger, danger, danger. Okay. So those are happening. When your nervous system's super stuck, you'll go into freeze response, which is the same as a tiger jumping out on the trail you're walking on, surprising both of you, knowing you don't have a plan to handle the situation at hand. Okay. So when your nervous system is responding like that, you have stuck energy. You almost stop breathing. You just, tied up in knots, and you have that sucker gut punch in your stomach. And then if you're in fawn mode, because it's the only way to avoid the conflict that you're sure is about to befall you, that's when you're like, oh, I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll be whatever you need me to be. I will morph and be a chameleon and go along with it to avoid abandonment, rejection, disloyalty, whatever it is. whatever you're worried about. That's how your nervous system is acting on a negative scale. When your nervous system is happy and it's safe and all is well, the thoughts that you're thinking about cause your nervous system to say, we're good. And your nervous system is in charge of sending out all the little hormones throughout your whole body. And they're saying something in between, we are not safe, alert, and all the adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, everything, the chemical soup for survival comes up. But if you're in rest and digest, you have a really nicely regulated set of hormonal messengers going out through your whole body, just putting in that nice, easy heart rate, blood pressure, all the organs are on, little vacation, everything's going smooth, okay? And we have, those are extremes, so there's everything in between. You might even be triggered in your nervous system with a little thought that you had that didn't bring up massive anxiety or massive overwhelm or extreme fatigue or any of those other negative feelings that we have. So let's go back. So a thought that you learned to think, that thought over and over again, like if you see a homeless person and the thought you learned from your parents was get a job, and that thought is what you think over and over and over, it builds a story about you have to work hard for your money, or you can't be lazy. Whatever the story was that you learned, it's going around in your head, has caused you to form thoughts that you think over and over and over, and they become your beliefs. Now, when you have a belief, but it's causing cyclical negative patterns to happen in your life, that belief is missing truth. But you're operating as if it is the truth. And so if it's the truth, it would produce good results in your life. You would have no money blocks. You would have healthy, interdependent relationships. You would have this magnetism that manifests all of the things that you're like, it's not a problem. I am limitless. You would have this sense of full freedom about expressing yourself and trying something new and being uninhibited. Okay? So if your thoughts are stuck and it's triggering your nervous system, and all of that is now also governing your behaviors, you're going to get the same old story over and over. What I want you to understand about the thing you want most, which is to change negative behaviors, is that you have to go back and ask, where did that thought come from? What do I really think about that thought? Like let's take money, for example. If you saw your parents struggling with money, and clearly I did. My dad acted like money had no limit, except for when he was out of it, because he would spend everything he had and worry my mom to death. And my mom, coming from the Great Depression, always described herself as a 3-year-old sucking on a potato because there was nothing else to eat. So scarcity and like prosperity issues. And this is what I saw my parents doing. So for years and years and years, I was like, I'm not going to be like my parents. I'm not going to be like my parents. And I wasn't changing what I believed about my parents and what I saw them do. And so one of the ways to take a look at what you actually believe and figure out what are the thoughts that I'm thinking that really don't hold any truth. So the fact of the matter was, my parents didn't have money, which actually has no meaning to it. There's no meaning to it. It just was. They grew up poor and they made sure they stayed poor. Okay. So there's nothing really wrong with that until I add meaning in. And what I saw them doing was living in pain. They wanted money. My mom was definitely cut from a royal cloth, and she was a beautiful lady, and mink stoles back in the day looked real good on her. And my dad also wanted to be seen as successful, and money was the most important thing. It was always money and then relationships, because that's how challengers are built. And he wanted to be big man on campus, more or less. He wanted to be seen as a super successful money guy. And so they had to put on a lot of airs. And all they were doing in front of me, it was exposing their pain. Their pain of deprivation, their pain of status or lack thereof. It was just painful. And when I asked myself, what did it mean to you? Myself answered, my higher self answered, they were not taking care of themselves. It lacked love. Because when you take care of yourself, there's a lot of love involved. It's good stuff. It just feels good. And there's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no, disrespect. There's none of that going into self-care, self-love. And when I thought about that, I was like, oh my gosh, me not having money means I'm also not taking care of myself, because we need money. Money is good. Money is very good. The more you have, the more you can do, the more it frees you up, the more you can give, the more you can donate, the more you can be generous with. Like, money is a great thing. And I realized that it was actually part of my self-care program that I needed to be part of. I needed to instill it in my life and install it. So that was how I broke through my money issues. Was I asked what it meant to me, because you're the one assigning a meaning with your thoughts. But oftentimes we assign the meaning to our thoughts based on what we learned before the age of 7, when we were too emotionally underdeveloped to really process what it meant. So if you watched your parents and it didn't make you happy, what meaning did you add to it? And the same goes for death. Like, someone dies, there's no meaning to that. They were here, now they're not. Done. End of story. It's like, doesn't mean anything until you assign a meaning to it. And when you assign a meaning to it, that's when you get the emotion. And that meaning, if it has a higher vibrational energy to it, which is towards the love side of things, it feels good. And I'm not saying that there won't be a grieving process if you lose someone you love. I'm saying that the grieving process will cycle through much faster when you're like, but they're in a better place. I love them, they love me. We know where we stand. All is well. If you didn't get a chance to share that you loved with them, you can have a better thought by saying, they are in a better place, and I'm grateful that they are no longer in pain. It may not remove any pain you feel about not being able to share your love with them, or them not being, owing you an apology or whatever is going on. But when you can come up with a thought that has a better meaning to it, things get better. That's how patterns change, is you change the meaning of the thoughts you're having. I get it. The hardest part is like, what thought am I having? I don't know but that's the part when you go back and you think about what you're thinking just before you felt what you felt. I know. But if you feel sad, if you feel angry, if you are bitter, if you have resentment, you just thought a thought. And maybe you thought a thought a million times before, and it's just built up all this anger and all this resentment, it's all this bitterness, it's all this rage. That habit of thought is a belief system. All men are bad. Because something happened before the age of 7, and you decided that was going to be your story, and you're sticking to it. But if you pull it back And you're like, but are all men bad? Can I find an example of a good man? Yes. They're all around us. Yes. I can find a good example of a good man. Then is your story true? No, because you assigned a meaning to it and you decided that was going to be your story. Now, if you're looking for a relationship, that's going to be a problem if you're heterosexual. If you're looking for a man who is good to you, who is healthy, emotionally available, but you think they're all bad, you're just going to find the bad ones. You have to change the meaning. That at that time in my life, I thought that thought, and I added the meaning that all men are bad. But if it's not true, then maybe I can find a higher vibrational thought to have that's going to help me find a man and have a healthy and good relationship with. But it's the meaning you assign to it. I always say that you think a thought, subconsciously you assign emotion to it, or you assign a meaning to it. And that meaning is either closer on the fear side, which is the absence of love, or it's drawing closer to the love side, which is an absence of fear. So when I had that thought about my parents, they weren't being good to themselves, but I was following in their footsteps. The meaning was, I'm not being good to me, which pulled me back. I was like, whoa, hold up. I want to be good to me. Like, I don't think like they do. I'm not a self-deprecating person. I believe I'm worthy. I believe I'm lovable. I believe all the good stuff about myself. So why am I still operating by a belief, which is a habit of thought that I thought of way back when I couldn't ease my parents' pain? And so part of being good to me is not just self-acceptance, not just self-love, not just self-care, it's including money in that I changed the meaning of what money meant to me. Money brings you pain. Money brings it, like, that's what I was thinking, is like, money's not good because it makes my parents fight. It makes my parents sad. It makes my parents angry with one another. Money cannot be good. But I did that. I assigned that meaning to money. Money didn't do it. Money's got no meaning. It's the thought and the meaning we assign to money that makes it mean something to us. Money, we can assign a meaning that says money is a problem and watch us struggle because it's lacking truth. It's lacking love. It's just fear-based. Or you can say, money is part of my healthcare plan. It's part of my wellness plan. It's part of my mental health plan. It's part of my emotional health plan. It's part of my spiritual battery charging plan. Like you can decide the meaning of money, the meaning of loss, the meaning of prosperity. You can, like, if you think people with money are bad because they're prosperous, you going to struggle with money? Probably. But if you're a good person, you struggle with money, and you say people with money are bad, you need to, we got to reassign that money or that meaning to money so you can be a good, prosperous person too. You're a good person, but it's a struggle without money. That's the pattern you want to break. Does that make sense? So as you're thinking about your nervous system triggering your behavior, you're going to keep cycling through unless you teach your nervous systems to feel something else. The thought you have, the meaning you assign to it, triggers the nervous system, triggers the emotional outcome, triggers the pattern. And you see, like, one thing in your head triggers everything else. And that is it. On a whole, it determines how your life goes. Life is good for you. Life is easy for you. Life is hard. Life is always a struggle. You got to work hard. But All the people that work hard and we're still broke, man, that's not true. It's not true that you have to work hard to earn money. Right? We're starting to go, oh, I always grew up with this value system that you had to work hard to have money. Yet we knew people who worked hard and still didn't have money. So that's not true. It's only if you believe you deserve money, that money is good, that money comes to you, that money is always in flux and it might as well stop and pay you a visit at your door, at your house. When you assign a new meaning to the thought you're having, it triggers your nervous system in a way that pushes your behavior forward, right? Fawning, freezing, fighting, or flight, those are behaviors. Right? If you're triggered and you just blow up and you're starting to have these panic attacks, or you're blaming somebody, or you have an argument, or you're just going to confront someone, those are triggers. You're in fight mode. Where did that come from? Your nervous system, which is located in your brain, and where are your thoughts? Located in your brain. So it's a thought, it's a meaning assigned to it. It's that meaning triggers the nervous system on what to do next. Rest and digest, fight or flight, and then your behaviors follow suit. So if you want to break a pattern, it's going to be super important that you change the thoughts you're having and the meaning that's assigned to them. You can't really change the thought till you get to the meaning. You have to identify what the meaning is. What does that mean to me? That's the question. What? Not why. What? What does that mean to me? And as soon as you decide that the thought you had, which you'll only recognize the emotion first. That makes me angry. That I'm so frustrated. That is so stupid. The emotion there, yeah, that was created from a thought you had first. So you kind of have to backtrack and go to that thought you had first, and then realize that the thought you had is lacking truth. It no longer serves you. It's causing the same patterns to be cyclical in your life. It's frustrating you and dragging your life down. And you've got to figure out what the meaning was. What does that mean to me? Where did I see it first? And what meaning did I assign to it when I was young? Because it's an emotionally underdeveloped meaning. And as an adult, you want to have those meanings transition into a positive, high vibrating love, thought, and meaning. You just want to upgrade it. And when you can do that, you can identify, oh my gosh, that didn't have truth in it. And now I can talk about what is more true for me now. And when you find more truth, it is an equal match to light and love. More truth is in that direction of feeling good. And when you feel good, you feel sort of like that pressure comes off of you. You feel lighter. You feel at ease. You feel relieved. And when you feel relieved, you're on the right track. You're on your way to breaking patterns. And those patterns, the new patterns that you're forming, the thoughts you think and the habits of thought that turn into beliefs are going to hold more truth, because those beliefs have a meaning assigned to them that leads you to behave. Your nervous system's behaving, your emotions come through, and then your actions all align with a better thought that had a much better meaning added to it. That's how you change your patterns. It's a lot. I always offer free help. If you need some free coaching, just get on the phone and talk about, how do I change this in my life? I offer it for you. There's always a link in the show notes to my calendar, schedule an appointment. I would love to talk to you, because your happy life is one of my favorite things, and we got to work out these patterns so that they work for us, not against us. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. I invite you to leave your feedback and share your aha moments as you listen to this podcast. Also, you can access more information or any of the programs, courses, or worksheets that I've mentioned on these episodes on my website at teresaford.life. Or what I would really love is for you to connect with me on Instagram at teresaford.coaching and on Facebook at Coaching with Teresa Ford, so I can give you more interesting insights and further coaching to help you fulfill the measure of your creation.